Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasam. So, the full moon, the first full moon of the, what we call the hot season, though it may not be hot in many parts of the world right now. We're just coming through March. But by the traditional Asian calendar, you've got 3 seasons. You've got a cold season, a hot season, and a rainy season. And so many calendars actually begin with this full moon. And in the Tibetan calendar, for instance, it's considered a very auspicious and meritorious day, a day of the multiplication of merit. It's said that good things that we do on this day are multiplied many times. I don't know if that's because it's the beginning of the year, a good time to set new patterns, or this moon fires special lunar rays that make everything go right. I don't know. I'm no expert on such things. But nevertheless, hearing that, it makes it seem like it would be a good day to talk about merit. And even a teaching the Buddha gave on what are called the 4 streams of merit. And so one of the major recollections the Buddha talks about as a recommendation for lay Buddhists to develop is Dānā nusati, or Chaga nusati as it's called, but the recollection of generosity, the recollection of giving and giving up. And this is a wonderful recollection for brightening the mind, for giving this sense of enthusiasm and delight in the fact that there is this path, this well-expounded path that shows us what's good in the world and worth cultivating, and bad in the world and worth letting go of or disassociating with to whatever degree we can. And so the recollection of merit is intrinsically this recollection of giving and supporting and caring and all of the wholesome activities. Wholesome activities, what we call meritorious activities, generate something called puñña. And the Buddha famously, he relates the giving of gifts, of Dānā, to be a source of puñña or merit. And he says that will support you in future lives. But at one point, the monks of his order were kind of turning up their nose at the giving of gifts. Now, these were people who renounced all worldly possessions. So they're like, oh yeah, all of the, giving and ceremonies and all of that, bah humbug. That's for people who are trying to cultivate pleasant rebirth, but we're trying to overcome birth in samsara. And the Buddha said, monks, don't overlook puñña. Don't think little of puñña. Puñña is just another word for happiness. And with that, the Buddha is pointing out the fact that merit is all those actions which are wholesome. And because they're wholesome, they are pleasant in the doing, and they are pleasant in the results. The consequences of those actions are pleasant and wished for. Sometimes the fruit takes time to ripen, but it's always pleasant if the action is wholesome. So these 4 streams of merit that the Buddha talks about are Dānā, or the giving of physical gifts and offerings, the acts of service, so doing things for others, caring for others, looking out for others. The teaching of worldly skills and even Dhamma teaching is the third. So the imparting of knowledge, the instructing, the showing people how things are done and how to become competent. And the fourth is Bhavana, or development. Many translations would say that Bhavana is meditation, but as I'll talk about when I get to that, Bhavana is a word that actually means so much more than simply sitting in formal meditation. So what is Dānā? What is the giving of physical gifts? And it is just what we would think it is. Giving something, whether it be charity, like giving money to our favorite charity, or giving food to the homeless, or giving away your stuff into a charity bin. This is an act of unburdening ourselves, really. Stuff can be a burden. Wealth can be a burden. It needs to be protected. But by giving it, we have not only helped out others, but we have, in some ways, we've invested or converted that thing, which was just a physical thing, which had a certain amount of value to us. We've converted it into a potential. The happiness that comes from giving things to others, especially things that are needed, it makes us happy. It makes us happy now, and we can reflect on it probably for the rest of our lives, and it will still make us happy, which is a wonderful thing. So there's a whole suttas on the efficacy of Dānā, but also the calculus, if you will. So it's not just a one-to-one simple thing, like the giving of an apple to the person next to you versus the giving of I don't know, if you were to, in the Buddhist time, you would give somebody a cow, and that would be like a really awesome gift. But so you gave somebody a computer, or you gave somebody a car, or you gave somebody a house. Obviously, those two gifts might not be the same. But there's also the sort of equation of who is giving the gift that can increase the merit or the power of that gift. There's also the quality of the person who's receiving that gift. So if one were to give a gift to an animal, say you give a squeaky toy to a dog, that gift, the Buddha said, might repay 100 times in value. So if you were to take, and that's a good example because this is very tangible. So what amount of joy would you get from a squeaky toy? Squeak it a few times, like, oh, that's kind of satisfying. But then you give it to the dog, and the dog, squeaky, 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 runs around and squeaky, squeaky, squeaky all day, for days, for weeks, for years. It becomes its favorite toy. And every time you see the dog with that toy, you're like, I'm really glad I was able to give that. That's brought so much joy. And that joy becomes your joy. It's a shared joy. And so 100 times is even, a conservative estimate of the potential of giving something to even an animal. But now to give something to a human repays, I think, like 10,000 times. The Buddha says, basically, it's even to an unvirtuous human being, a gift is incredibly meritorious. It's something you will think about and dwell on, and that person may think about and dwell on. And it may inspire the people around that person and around you. There's in some ways, there's no limits to the amount of goodness that can come from that when you think in terms of time. But obviously, it'll only extend so far. Give somebody an apple, they eat the apple. The benefit diminishes, and then they'll need another apple at some point. They'll need more food. And so we can give. And if you give to an unvirtuous person, it may not help them very much at all. They might even use it to their detriment. But the Buddha still says this will pay out in happiness, right? Some people are afraid to give to the homeless, or afraid to give to those who use drugs, afraid to give for fear that the money won't turn that person into a virtuous, healthy, stable member of society. And that's beside the point. In terms of, is the gift good? Well, yeah, giving is good. But is it greatly good, or is it just a little good? Well, that is affected by the quality of the person. Now, if we were to give to a virtuous human being, it's like 100,000 times. As that person is going to be supported in all of the acts of generosity and service and teaching and bhavana that they do, and you've supported them. But now this is about where it caps off, because the Buddha then says, if you were to give to someone who is a stream enterer, there's no calculating the amount of merit that could come from that. And it stands to reason, if you support somebody who is a noble being, who's on the path to enlightenment, there's the potential that they might help you attain stream entry, be on the path to enlightenment. Even if you were to study them, it could be a teaching that would affect the course of your life, because a noble person has noble virtue. And so this is the point where you can't even calculate anymore the merit of giving. And this is part of why so much is talked about in terms of giving physical things, especially giving physical things to the Sangha of the 8 kinds of enlightened beings, because you can't even estimate the amount of happiness and merit that might result from that. And so that's Dānā in a nutshell. And I think if you've got any sense of Buddhism encourages generosity, encourages kindness, and encourages peace and harmony. So it's like, you've probably heard of that. Giving is a good thing. It's highly recommended. The second stream of merit is the doing of service. And to be honest, I don't even know the Pali word for this. But it stands to reason that this is something even better. Because in a way, Dānā, or the giving of gifts, is to recognize that we can't always have the thing we need at all times. Like, we need each other to kind of look out for us and to provide for our needs. And not everybody can be a farmer. Some people need to be a merchant. Some people need to be a school teacher. Some people need to be a firefighter. We have different jobs, so we provide different things. And this second stream of merit is the recognition that in learning and developing, we acquire skills, we acquire capabilities. And these things are not nothing. It's, even if we don't have physical goods to give, we can help somebody carry something, or open a door for them, or point out directions. There are so many ways that we can help other people. And if we were to help that person, and then they go and they give a physical gift, or they're able to do development, well, that we supported that. And so this is why when you look around, you probably notice that there are some professions that are in high demand, like teachers and doctors, police officers, people who protect law and order. These are occupations which are about service. It's interesting in our society that these are some of the hardest jobs, really. Because there is so much need for them. They deal with our basic intrinsic human needs, for shelter, security, protection when we're ill and we can't take care of ourselves. And this stream of merit is something that virtually everybody will experience, even if they aren't, they don't study and become a doctor, or they don't, take some of the lowest pay in the country and be a teacher, to help bring up the next generation. They, many people find that being a parent is such an incredible heart-opening experience for this reason, that we are born helpless. Literally this squiggling little worm-like creature that is going to need time to grow and mature. And as our parents and caregivers that make it possible for us to survive. And this is service, this is nurturing. This is a powerful, powerful stream of merit. And the Buddha said in one very stark simile, if we were to take our parents and carry them on our backs and take care of them and walk about through the world with them on our backs, look after them for 100 years, still we would not repay the debt that we owe them for having been brought into the world and looked after when we were helpless. And this is to show that this service is so much greater, because no person is an island. No person can exist without the support of others, the assistance of others. It's almost as essential as food and water. The third stream of merit, getting greater and more sublime, is the teaching of teaching in general. So teaching of Dhamma, of course, the highest order, teaching of the noble truths and the way things are, but even the teaching of simple things. Many people have heard the proverb, I think, attributed to Jesus, that give a man a fish and you fed him for a day, but teach him to fish and you fed him for a lifetime. Now, this is not a vegetarian proverb, obviously, but it's still a good example of the principle that Dānā, giving, is great and will help somebody in the immediate. But if we have cultivated something, if we've developed a skill that we are able to exercise that will help them even more, we can go out and we can fish and we can bring in those fish and take those to market and feed a bunch of people day after day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. But now suppose we were to develop that craft and learn about it and understand it, find a way to do it well. And we were to not hold on to that knowledge, not hide that knowledge away and keep it to ourselves, but we were to take the person next to us and we were to say, hey, do you want to know how to do this? I am not going to live forever. You will someday be without me. So I can't do that second stream of merit forever. I can't do this for you forever. But what I can do is show you how to do it. And from then on, you won't need me. In some ways, this is a very courageous thing to do, to teach and impart wisdom on somebody else. And in some ways, it can be difficult. It is hard to teach. And in some ways, it might be thankless. There's some teachers that we really appreciate, and there's some teachers that we really don't appreciate, because some teachers teach us difficult lessons. Now, the Buddha actually referred to his cousin Devadatta as his greatest teacher. And if anybody knows the story of the Buddha and Devadatta actively was trying to kill the Buddha. He created a schism in the Sangha. He was hiring assassins and pushing boulders off of cliffs to try to smash the Buddha, and actually injured the Buddha in the process. But the Buddha thought of Devadatta as an incredible teacher, because the Buddha, even though these were difficult things, he learned so much through them. He learned about mindfulness. He learned about social dynamics and how to make his community stronger. So no matter whether Devadatta was a good teacher or a bad teacher, he was of value in showing things. And a wise person can learn from just about anything. But now when we actually give of ourselves and teach intentionally, this is a stream of merit. And I don't know, you can probably go into just about any trade and talk to somebody who's been in that trade for a while and ask them what it's like to train somebody new, and then to see that person develop and learn the lessons. And they'll probably get a little misty-eyed. They'll be like, yeah, I'm really proud of that. And every week here, we've been doing a family group. So we've had the opportunity to open up Dhamma teaching to two local children and their families. So this is something that I found very beneficial, not just the teaching of Dhamma, but that idea of being able to impart Dhamma even to children. And I think this can be overlooked. Like we meditate and we deal with philosophy and jhanas and dependent origination. But if we were to impart an idea like goodwill or truthfulness or patience to a child, to somebody who had never heard of it before, and then in the future we were to see them, stop and be compassionate or be patient or admit to something when it was difficult, say, yeah, I did that, I'm sorry. We could be like, wow, this is what it's like to have made a real impact in somebody's life. And because people do intrinsically understand this, that's why we do have teachers, we do have mentors, we do have people who take on apprentices. And in fact, the Sangha, the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis who are ordained, there is this sense of mentoring just built into the form. When a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni ordains, they are dependent on their teachers. And this is a very powerful reciprocal relationship. The student looks after the teacher and the teacher looks after the student. And there's this understanding that when we come into it, we need guidance. And so there's this humbling where we say, we ask for it. And there's this exchange where we say, the teacher is my burden and I am the teacher's burden. This is what it's like. It's not easy to teach somebody, and it may take time. It may take innovative new ways. It may be difficult, but the rewards are great, because it means there will be more people in the world who can do that thing. The fourth and final stream of merit. Now, these are all great things, right? This is kind of like, yeah, this is awesome. These are good things. These are worth doing. Hopefully it's like making us open up and like, yeah, there was that guy who gave me an apple. Yeah. And it's like, oh, there was somebody who held the door for me, or, oh yeah, my doctor, they're so kind. They listen to me with all my little things and they give me the right medicines or the right, do the right tests. Or we can be like, yeah, that teacher in fourth grade, they really got through to me. They really helped me out. It opens the heart just to recollect this, just as the Buddha said. Now, the fourth stream of merit is what's called Bhavana. And Bhavana is a word which means cultivation. It's literally the word that we use for gardening. Like when we've got a rocky patch of ground and we till it and we water it, and then we plant seeds and we look after it and we pull the weeds so that we get a crop. That is Bhavana. Yeah. But now this word is applied to spiritual development. And so sometimes you will hear this translated as meditation. And so the idea is that the doing of physical acts the giving and the serving and the teaching, all of that is well and good. But at some point, we've got to stop and we've got to sit and we've got to meditate so that we can understand the Dhamma. And I think this is an oversimplification of what meditation is, to be honest. Because the word Bhavana is a duty. It is a duty for the fourth noble truth. And the fourth noble truth is that of the path to the end of suffering. It's the Eightfold Path. And our duty is to develop the Eightfold Path. And it's not a duty like, all people must do this. It is sort of the duty that we rise up to and take on for ourselves. When we realize there is suffering and we realize that suffering has a cause, we realize we can abandon that cause, then we realize in order to abandon that cause of suffering, we will have to develop something that is not yet developed. We'll have to take the barren, rocky ground of our habits and our delusions and our grievances and assumptions. And we're going to have to plow that stuff up. We're going to pull the weeds. And we're going to have to start cultivating good qualities to replace it. So if the Eightfold Path was already in existence in our lives, then there'd be nothing to do. We would be enlightened and life would be good. But we recognize from the outset that the Eightfold Path is not yet cultivated. Our life is not yet in harmony with the Eightfold Path. And so Bhavana means we start looking at each of those factors and at our views, at our intentions, at our conduct of speech and body, the way we earn our livelihood. And, do we understand, there's effort to be applied. And do we develop mindfulness and awareness of physical realities, tangible realities, what is going on in our mind? And do we seek to establish samadhi or a continuity of that awareness that is not susceptible to pervasive delusion? Do we extricate ourselves from delusion so that we can continue to see clearly? Do we develop that? And so Bhavana is an action, right? It's not a state. We're not simply in a state of being cultivated. Bhavana is when we take the time to look at one of these things, one of these ways to be in harmony with the way things are. And we apply the right efforts. We abandon the unwholesome qualities and we develop the wholesome ones. So this is both an act of relinquishing, of giving up, because we have to be willing to give up our bad habits. We have to be willing to give up our delusions, to give up our assumptions. It's the surrendering of these unwholesome habits that we've developed. But we have to be willing to make good things come into being, right? We have to be willing to say, I don't always have kind thoughts about so-and-so. And because of that, when it comes time to speak to so-and-so, I don't always speak kindly. I mean, those seem to go together. Because I'm not having kind thoughts, I don't always have kind speech. And because I'm not always interacting with them in a kind way, sometimes, we do things that get on each other's nerves. One leads to the other, leads to the other. And because we get on each other's nerves, bhava, becoming, my life becomes a source of suffering. We start to recognize that. And so the act of bhavana is any time where we look at body, speech, or mind, and we intentionally develop better ways of doing things, wholesome ways of doing things. And just as, if you were to teach somebody to fish, you would feed them for a lifetime. If we were to cultivate a wholesome or sublime quality, especially in the realm of thought, but even just in the realm of action, that would be something that would transfer into so many activities, so many interactions, it would change people's perceptions of us, and in good ways. Like if we do something good and somebody sees us do something good, then they know that there's good people in the world. So their sense of fear diminishes. And that could very well change the way that they see the people around them, because their fear has diminished. And because it changes the way they see the people around them, it can cause them to cultivate these streams of merit and do good for other people. The effects are enormous, immense, incalculable for this stream of merit. And there still is a sort of calculus for this. In one sutta, the Buddha describes that progression. Like if you were to give something to an animal, it would pay out like this. And if you were to give something to an immoral person, it would pay out like this. And he said, say you were to give food, clothing, and shelter to the Sangha, day in and day out for 100 years. Oh, how great, how enormous. But he said all of that would be dwarfed by the amount of merit you would get for cultivating, for Bhavana, developing the release of the heart through loving kindness for the time it takes to milk a cow. And I don't know how long that is, but it can't be but a few minutes. Yeah. So to actually sit and to completely get your mind out of the gutter, to just get to a state where there are no unwholesome, angry, annoyed, frustrated thoughts arising. And they're just purely loving, kind, generous thoughts arising. And you're just like shotgun blasting just everybody that comes to mind with these good, wholesome, loving, kind thoughts. And trying to think of new ones. And trying to imagine new ways of helping and supporting the people around you, and imagining them in new states of happiness. If you were to do that for just a few minutes, the effect that would have on your mind stream is incalculable, because it's almost guaranteed that you would have to wake up to the fact that anger is something that can be abandoned, that love, that goodwill is something that can be cultivated, strengthened. And when it strengthens us. It will change your thoughts. It will change your speech. It will change your actions in the world. It may change your entire life. Even just a few minutes of that practice is an acknowledgement of a really essential Buddhist principle, that there is no permanent self that we're stuck with, that we can change, that we can grow, that we can blossom, that we can become something really amazing in this very life. But the Buddha says even that would be dwarfed by the Bhavana, the cultivation of anicca sanya, or the recognition of impermanence for the time it takes to snap your finger. I think that's maybe even less than a second. So for that amount of time, if we were to truly see impermanence in the way that the noble beings see impermanence, which is summed up by a phrase, yan kinchi samudaya dhammam sambantang nirodha dhammanti. All that is of the nature to arise is of the nature to cease. If we were to see that, even for like a blink or a finger snap, that would be that moment preceding stream entry, at the very least. Or if we're already there, then it's the continuation and the development of that important insight. That insight which allows us to abandon unwholesome rebirth in the animal, the hungry ghost, or the hell realms, to abandon the intentional breaking of the 5 precepts, to abandon suffering, a great heap of suffering, and to inextricably step foot on the path towards enlightenment. Now, we might have a lot of work to go, but that's a heck of a finger snap, yeah? That's a heck of a moment in our lives, one that, just changes everything permanently. And that's the thing. We believe in impermanence, but that is a permanent thing. That is a permanent change that happens. Because once ignorance is broken, it can't be put back together again. And we can't go back to being ignorant once we have seen the Four Noble Truths, once we have realized the way that things actually are, once we have seen that there is no permanent self, then all of the avenues for development, for growth, for the harmonizing and maturing and development of the Eightfold Path have opened up for us. All right, so these are 4 streams of merit on this most meritorious of moons. I offer this for your reflection. May you be well, may you be happy, and get to it.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Great, great. Thank you very much, Tahn.